101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my feature author of the month of April. She's award winning and best selling author, no other than Miss Marcy Pusey.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back, Miss Marcy, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, I am an author, I'm a speaker, I am a custom publisher. So I also help people tell their own stories and get their stories into the world through books. And I'm also a therapist, which I don't know if I've shared that with you before in this space. Maybe it's come up, but I am certified in trauma and resilience. And it's been really very cool to see how my therapy studies and my work there, but also my personal experiences have helped me to help authors who, as they're writing, encounter all kinds of roadblocks and obstacles and mindset limitations and all kinds of things. And so um, that's a little bit about me, at least as far as what I do.
Miss Marcy Pusey, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. And today, what or which one of your book we gonna talk about?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about The Survival Squad, which is one of my newer children's picture books. Though, as I was sharing with you beforehand, I actually use it with adults almost more than I have with children so far, because it's a story where I've taken animals to represent parts of the brain to help people understand what's going on inside their head when they feel unsafe in some way. And so I wanted to be able to talk about that here with you today.
Awesome. So, what are your struggles in writing the Survival Squad?
Well, finding time for myself because I help people publish their books all the time. It's what I do. I love it. And I find that if someone's relying on me to get their book published, I'm putting my own work to the side. And so I had to be disciplined and boundaried and set up some accountability to help me get it done in at all. So that was probably my greatest challenge. It is my 21st published book out of 22, and so it there's a lot that feels normal to me. I should say of my own. I've published hundreds of books, but of my own 21st book. And so some of the challenges that really grabbed me when I was a newer author, a newer publishing author, I've learned some skills or, overcome. But at this point, at this season in my life, it really was time and choosing me.
Choosing you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us what behind the title of the Survival Squad.
Yeah. The survival squad represents these three animals that you can see there: the tiger, the meerkat, and the owl. And then I do have a subtitle. I included it on the back, but not on the front. So the subtitle is Friends, Fear, and a Jungle Journey. And the reason I called it the survival squad and used these animals is because we have a survival brain. Like our whole nervous system, our whole body's design is around keeping us alive, around surviving. And so much of how we operate in the world is stemming from that system. If not almost everything that we do is our system responding to that. And so oftentimes I have found that people not understanding that will try to force themselves to behave differently or interact differently, or they'll shame themselves for not feeling stronger or for reacting the way they did. Or when you're interacting with someone else, in the case of these animals, when our owl, I know I haven't explained it yet, but I'll just give this as an example. When our owl has flown away, we have lost our ability to reason, to really access and decode language, to delay gratification, prioritize. Like all of our higher level thinking happens with our owl. And so if I'm talking to one of my kids and I can see that their owl has flown the coop, I'm not going to try to reason with them or expect them to make good decisions. I'm going to need to help them support their owl coming back before any of that will be effective. And yet, as a parent, before I knew these things, what do? We lecture, we reason, we ask, like, why did you do that? What were you thinking? And the owl's like, I'm not even here. So the rest of the team is like, well, we weren't thinking. They're just responding. And so I know I've just given a tiny glimpse into how those animals work, but that's what they do, and that's how I came to the survival squad, is to represent, this is our survival brain, and this is the team that lives within our heads, so to speak, that is operating, and we get to support them as we understand what they do for us.
Miss Marcy, beautifully articulated. Very well said. Who is your favorite character in the book and why?
Oh, ooh, this is like asking who's my favorite child. I mean, they all
Yes.
play such an important role. I mean, I think the owl would be a character that I love because that's where I want to live all the time. I always want to have access to my higher level thinking and to make good decisions. But then it's our tiger that represents our brainstem, where so much of our creativity and imagination, our body function comes from. So I'm like, well, you're pretty important, even if you don't use your words in the same way. I know I'm not answering your question. I'm just like, they're all my favorite. The meerkat
Yes.
is what's like our alarm system. Like, I love my meerkat, even though sometimes he's operating from misinformation, right? He's triggering an alarm when I'm actually safe, but he's not sure. So he activates the team. Man, I love that he's there looking out
All
for me.
of them.
All of
All
them,
of them,
all my
yes.
favorite, and they really are.
For sure. They are all empowering in the character.
They
So,
are.
how do you develop the setting for the story and what role does it play in the narrative?
The setting itself, like the jungle kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to think, where might a tiger, an owl, and a meerkat all live together in real life? And it's still a little bit of a stretch, but here we are. I'm not going to tell you exactly where in the world they are, but the
Where?
setting gives you the idea
Yes.
that they're in a place
We're in the jungle,
where we can
literally.
all live together. Yeah, and we've got an elephant that shows up later. We've got a lion. We've got snakes. We've got all kind of rabbit, frog. We've got all kinds of animals that are coexisting in this nature space, and it really just it was important in the sense of creating a realistic feel and giving a backdrop to the story. Um, I guess in reality, it's like we are living in a jungle called planet Earth with other humans, and we're trying to live this life and navigate all the obstacles that come at us. And we've got this team inside of us that's responding, and it is. I'm right. We say sometimes like it's a jungle out there, and it kind of is. So I didn't necessarily do that on purpose, but I think it serves to represent even what life looks like, that you're in this beautiful place, like Earth is beautiful, and there's a lot of obstacles that can surprise us, as we're enjoying the beauty that this earth is.
Totally agree. Miss Marcy, we're living literally in the jungle.
In the jungle.
So, what message or theme do you hope readers take away from the Survival Squad?
I want readers to understand that the way they respond, I'm going to say again, to like obstacles in life is based on a team that loves them very much. Like, our body is doing everything in its power to keep us alive, and it's miraculous, it's wonderful. We've got this whole system that I'm going to just keep using word like design, that just has this design and does what it's supposed to do and tries to do what it was made to do when there's illness or disease or injury, right? It's so beautiful. But we can often feel like our body or our brain is the enemy instead of our friend. And I want to help people see it as a friend, as this team that is doing its best to take care of you, so that you can change your relationship with that part of yourself and how it responds. And then not just change it, but even then take some ownership over it and stewardship of it. I probably every time we talk, I probably say the word stewardship at some point because it's so important to me that we are responsible with what we've been given and what we have. And so when I understand, like I said, that my meerkat, which is my fire alarm for danger, might be sensing danger in places where there isn't any, and I can do some good work helping my meerkat realize that's not danger anymore, or it's not danger at all, then my whole body stops responding to this thing in the way that it does. And so I can actually form a partnership with my body, with my team, with myself. And that is far more gracious and compassionate and kind and true than the idea that like my body's out to get me and it hates me and it's trying to kill me and destroy me. So that's really the message. I want people to walk away and say, "Oh man, I actually have this really wonderful thing inside of me and I can help it have better information." And this becomes like self therapy in a really beautiful and powerful way that we need. It's beginning to change some of the stories that we've believed by saying, "Oh, meerkat, you just have this wrong idea," right? Every fall, we are not in danger. That one fall, maybe something scary happened, but now we've had so many other fall seasons. And just because it's fall does not mean we're in danger. And we can begin to do some really good, like inner therapy, inner story work to calm our system down when fall comes around, right? I'm just using that as an example because our bodies can associate all kinds of things with danger. And so, yeah, that's what I want people to walk away with is that they have some to be empowered to make some of those changes, but also to see it from a place of compassion and kindness and not shame.
Is the survival squad influenced by personal experiences or real life situations?
I guess. I mean, yes. So I
Indeed.
yes, I have a brain and these animals are in it, and sometimes I talk to them. So when I was going through my trauma and resilience certification training through Star Commonwealth, they presented these animals to represent the brain. And with their permission, I've continued to talk about these animals and share it because it was so impactful to me. And I know that maybe there are some other therapies that use different animals or different ideas, and that's fine. But this is the one that's really just resonated with me. And I think as I was going through that program, I was at the same time raising adopted children who had first been foster children. I was in an abusive marriage at the time. I didn't know how to label it, but I knew that my own team was always working hard to keep me alive. And so I didn't have the language for it yet, but I'm in an abusive marriage. I'm raising children of trauma. I'm living overseas, so outside of my passport country. And like my therapist said, "Marcy, your survival skills expired." Like they expired. And that's why it's hard to function. And I was like, I didn't know they expired. And so I think when I was going through that training and I was learning about how these animals could represent parts of our brain, it lit up for me. Oh, they did expire, but not in a permanent way. They just collapsed in exhaustion because they thought, well, I was surrounded by so much danger, but I also didn't know how to take care of them in return. I didn't know how to learn to breathe to help my tiger. I didn't know how to challenge stories about danger that my meerkat had. I didn't know how important it was for my owl to feel safe to be able to support me and to how to bring my owl back, right? So I think as I was going through it, I was able to connect immediately to my own life experiences, what was going on, and in my kids, right? Even in my now ex-husband, to recognize that even as they were navigating their own early traumas or whatever, their own decision making in large part was coming from how their survival team is responding, and understanding that a traumatized brain rewires in some ways. And so even the nature of how that team works can seem upside down and backwards from a more typical brain. But it gave me understanding like, oh, I can't expect, like, for example, one of my kids who'd been through trauma, I don't know that he has an owl or has access to an owl. And that can be really common in traumatic unprocessed trauma and traumatic experiences. That if a child is in the womb or quite young, that part of the brain might never develop. This is the prefrontal cortex. Or it might have developed, but hasn't been turned on. Like it's just dark in a scan. And so, therefore, with that particular child, I'm not going to be able to do the reasoning, the see, when you do this, this is the consequence. That child would do something, have a consequence, and never learn from it because he didn't have that part of his brain to remind him of cause and effect. So I had to learn how to parent my kids differently based on what I was beginning to understand about their survival squads, each kid's unique survival squad. And then that's helped me in work with veterans. I've read this book to combat veterans. I really like, oh, and highly impactful for them to begin to understand PTSD, for their caregivers and their family members to begin to understand what their survival squad is doing in response to the person with PTSD. Like it's just been so helpful and supportive in that way. And um, yeah, it's just so much life experience.
Very impactful. So, can you share a memorable or particularly challenging scene you enjoyed writing?
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at it. So that's why my eyes are over here. I'm like a particularly challenging or enjoyable scene. Yeah. Okay. So the animals together, as they're going through the jungle, they're working their way to a jungle party. And as they're going to the jungle party, they face different obstacles. And each obstacle triggers one of the survival responses. So we've got fight, one of them triggers their fight response, one triggers the flight response, the freeze response, and the fawn response. And then I also have a response that just processes through, like they just overcome it. We didn't need all the things, right? So that readers can see what your brain is doing when it's choosing that particular response. And so I think actually the fawn response was the hardest one for me. The tiger encounters a lion, and up until then, the tiger's brawn has been able to address a number of the challenges. But in this case, he's the weaker party. He's not the king of the jungle, and that part of our brain doesn't decode language in the same way or access it in the same way. This is our brainstem. It's very sensory. So it's always talking, but not with words in the way that we're used to. And it can use words, but in an uncensored, free speech, free writing kind of way. Right. So when someone's maybe verbally processing and they haven't really thought it through and they're saying a bunch of nonsense, but words are coming out, or you're free writing, that can be your tiger communicating using words. And so in that scene, he actually does use the most words of any other part of the book. And that was a struggle for me to, like, I had to just keep understanding the brain. Why is he being so verbose when he's fawning, when it's a part of the brain that doesn't have a lot of access to language? But I did it. I think it's still very much in line with what we would expect from a fawn response in this team, right? In this whoever's brain we're in when I wrote this story. But yeah, I had to just really sit and think through not not only the characters I'm creating, but are they acting always in alignment as best as I can do with what that brain function would be doing? And you'll just have to go read the book to see how that plays out.
Definitely. Is there a sequel planned, or is it Survival Squad part of a series?
Yeah, so this is the first in a series. I've actually drafted the second one in the series, and that one will be coming out this year. The second one, so what I want to do in the series is give the team different scenarios where we can see um, like hypervigilance. What does it look like when your team is hypervigilant? Right now, the first book is just kind of like a normal person's response. Hypervigilance would be if Meerkat is afraid of everything they come across, no matter what it is, right? Just easily startled. Sure, everything's out to kill them in the jungle, and he's exhausting his teammates who always respond when he sends off the alarm. So book 2 is going to show how that looks and how to help our Meerkat calm down to a place where he's not feeling so jumpy and scared by so many things, because this is a very common response in people who've been around trauma for a while, like complex PTSD sometimes, or PTSD will have people constantly in this hypervigilant state. So I wanted to represent that through a story. I'll do one eventually where Owl is probably on vacation. So what does it look like to have a team encountering obstacles without Owl? And again, that's one of my kids. Some other people I know where I'm like, what does it look like? You know, where are these real life scenarios where our team has some dysfunction, and represent that through the story so that we can continue to learn and grow and support each other with what we're learning through the stories. So yeah, it's the first, and they will continue to come out.
Series.
Yeah.
Yes, looking forward for more and more series. Miss Marcy, so how do friendships and teamwork play in the themes of your book?
Yeah. I so much. I mean, they're best together. And this is the truth of our brain. Our brain, when it's fully functioning and it's all functioning within itself and each other, the different spaces, right? We have a very healthy brain. That's what we like to see. There's so many things in the world that can impact how that happens. But this team of ours works together to keep us alive. And so that is demonstrated through their friendship, which comes with disagreements and, their own little tiffs and whatever, but they all come back to the same purpose. And so that is an important part of the story. In the next story, that will come up even a little bit more when another little survival squad will join to help Meerkat find his own regulation again. So, and you find that too. It's towards the end of this one, is that they're there for each other. And this is our brain, right? So when one
Yes.
part of the brain is frozen, like when we think of the freeze response, let's say, and Tiger is in a freeze state, the other two come along and remind him of some good grounding skills and breathing techniques to pull him out of the freeze. And so it's an important part. And then as I say that, I realize that might be one reason I love them so much, is because I do have a personal value and belief that humans are better together too when we work together and when we don't get polarized and all the things that cause division and disunity in the world. Like, no, if we can find our common ground and realize we have a common goal of health and wholeness and safety for everybody, then we can work together and really bring the skills that we each uniquely have to the table, and then have so much more available for us, for us from a resourcing point. And so I think we're all made uniquely. We all, you have unique gifts and strengths. And when we bring those together, that's a beautiful thing. And so we do get to see that represented in the book, but it's also just a value I have of wanting people to come together and be greater as a whole.
Definitely, God created us uniquely, people. And do you think the survival squad is good for uh streaming platform like Netflix, Amazon,
Yes.
or totally unique, right? Because you're talking about the brain.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything really like this. I know when I was researching, there was a book that used different animals, but it wasn't done in the way that I've done it. And that's fine. I mean, if I want to learn about the brain, I'm buying all the books on the brain, right? So I don't feel in competition with anyone. What I want to do is make sure that I'm supporting what exists and then
Yes.
not just replicating it, like creating a library of resources that people can use when they want to um, have an enjoyable story, but also have some benefit that they can teach kids right in their homes. And so absolutely it should be everywhere.
Everywhere,
Everywhere.
people. So how did writing the survival squad impact you personally as an author?
That's a nice question, because like I said, this was my 21st personal published book, but each one is like a new baby that you're birthing, right? Like it's its own
Yes.
unique thing. And so I think this one impacted me um i- in that it had been in my mind and head for a long time. My second TEDx talk, I refer to these animals and I talk about them on the screen during my TEDx message, and that was 2020. the end of 2020. So it's been almost 5 years that I've been actively publicly in my trainings, in my speaking events, in my workshops, in my therapy practice, in my therapy programs, been using these animals to support people and hoping that someday I could create more access to them so people don't have to just work with me one on one or um, happen to fall on my TEDx talk, but can have other ways of making this kind of information accessible. And so I think it impacted me from a place of like accomplishment that I finally could close that tab in my brain, sort of, because now there's a series. But like, okay,
Yes.
I got the first one out there and now people are using it and it's making an impact. And I'm so proud of that, that just one of my goals is to make healing accessible to the everyday person. Not everyone can afford therapy or the kinds of treatment that they need. And not everyone needs therapy to the degree to which it gets used, right? So if I can give people language and understanding that they can apply to their everyday lives, so that they can apply to their relationships, that they can teach their kids, then we can actually save some of those therapy services for the greater needs. But then we just have a healthier community, we have healthier homes. And so I feel grateful that I was able to at least get this introduction book out. And I still feel now that I have more of them to bring out. So not
Yes.
over. It's not over.
Yes, more series to come.
Yeah.
So, Miss Marcy, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Mental Health 101, in its first season. People, first season,
Yay.
Mr. Mick Smith. Please do listen our latest episode. For sure, we are talking about mental health awareness.
Oh,
And
that's
for sure, Miss Marcy will be my contributor to my Mental Health 101. So please do listen Mental Health 101 wherever you listen your podcast. So Miss Marcy, after finishing your book, what main emotion or thought do you hope readers will experience?
I want them to experience relief. And that's probably the biggest one, relief. I mean, definitely the epiphany, the aha, but just like, oh, okay, I'm okay. And now I know how to support myself better or my loved one better. And sometimes it's hard. Like I do have people in my life who are realizing, oh yeah, maybe my child doesn't have an owl or maybe we do have a hypervigilant meerkat or whatever it might be. And there can be some grief sometimes associated with realizing that there's part of a team missing, a teammate missing help that can help them, right? So sometimes there's a little bit of grief, but there's still relief that now I understand what's going on and I can see better why what I've been trying hasn't worked and to know what to try. And then I'll mention too that inside of the book, there's a QR code that leads to extra activities. There's a video where I explain each animal and how they connect to the brain. I just go a little bit into that. I think it's about 10 minutes on 1X, so you can have it. And then there's all kinds of activity pages that can be used to print. All of that's free in order to personalize the story for the person. So whether that's a child or an adult, you can go through the activity page and begin to say, what is my owl like? What is my meerkat like? And do some of that. And then there's some descriptions inside as well. So if somebody, a therapist or a librarian or a teacher or whoever parent wants to use it, I give a lot of resources to help guide that conversation. Because again, I want to make this as accessible to people as possible. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to do.
Miss Marcy Pusey, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. And we are looking forward for more series of the Survival Squad. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes, come support all my books.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. I would love it. You can buy any of my books. I write for children, adults, on all kinds of topics and share them. If there's one here that you love or you know someone who would love it, then they make great gifts and go get one.
Yes, people, Miss Marcy Pusey, my award-winning and best-selling author, feature author the month of April. Let's support her because if you support her, more and more and more empowering series to come. So, Miss Marcy, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Such a pleasure.
More to come, people. See you soon.